Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Fun Following 7679 from the Relationship Advice subreddit, and it says, my 25 female parents have chased away every boyfriend I have ever had. How do I prevent this from ruining my relationship with my current boyfriend, 28 male? I was very shy during school and didn't leave my house unless I had to. So, as a result, I didn't get a boyfriend until my freshman year of college. After 7 months of dating my first ever boyfriend, I brought him to my parents' house for dinner. You know, just so they could meet him. I had to step away for roughly 10 minutes to help my older sister with her baby, and when I came back, my boyfriend, then 20 male, and my dad, old, were having a full-blown fist fight. We managed to stop them and my boyfriend stormed out without saying anything. While my dad insisted my boyfriend was incredibly rude and disrespectful to him and my mother, and that a guy like that was no good for me, because he'd just end up doing the same thing to me. I was shocked that my boyfriend could do such a thing because he'd always been extremely sweet, and I've never met or heard of anyone not liking him. But when I called him and told him what my dad had said about what happened, all he did was laugh and say, I can believe whatever I want, before blocking me on everything. I was deeply disturbed by this, but my mum and sister insisted that he had just shown his true colors, and said my dad saved me from an abuser. I reluctantly accepted this, but something about it felt really off. I met my second boyfriend several months later, during my sophomore year. Part of me still felt my parents were part of the problem with my last boyfriend, so I managed to get him to wait an entire year before introducing him to my parents. From the moment she laid eyes on him, every word my mum spoke to him was dripping with fake friendliness and subtle jabs implying she did not approve of him, which made him visibly uncomfortable. While we were eating dinner, she began asking me what made me decide to date my boyfriend, and asked about other guys and why they didn't work out. Some of the other guys she asked about were completely made up. At this point, it was clear what they were trying to do, and I silently vowed to talk to my boyfriend and tell him how my parents were trying to sabotage me. Unfortunately, it didn't get that far, as my dad chipped in and demanded to know how a boy who couldn't support himself financially was ever going to support his daughter. Mind you, we were both juniors in college at this point, and both of us were working part-time jobs. So this question was really insane. He responded by saying he already decided he wanted nothing to do with this family and was planning to break up with me when he got home, but he's just going to leave now. Within minutes, he was gone and I was blocked again. My parents insisted they did nothing wrong and just wanted to test his confidence as any parents would. But I pointed out that this was the second boyfriend they chased away, and they didn't do anything to scare off my older sister's husband. I went no contact with them after that, but fast forwarding a little bit, I eventually allowed them to gaslight me into introducing them to my third boyfriend, whom I had met towards the end of my senior year, and basically the same thing happened. I made it through college unable to find a long-term boyfriend purely because of my parents. I did meet my current boyfriend, 28 male, 2 years ago, and I've managed to avoid introducing him to my family thus far. If he ever brought it up, I'd always have a ready-made excuse prepared to explain why it wasn't possible, which has been pretty easy because he usually only asks about them when planning for major holidays. I've fallen madly in love with him and hope to start a family with him one day, but he recently told me that he can't even allow me to move in with him until he's had a chance to meet my family. I do not know what to do, as I know my parents will make it their mission to break us up if they meet him, but based on his insistence on meeting them, I realized I can't put this off any longer. Usually relationships end because of something one person in the relationship says or does, and it's incredibly unfair that I always end up single because of things I cannot control. I want to tell my boyfriend about my parents and insist that meeting them is a bad idea, but I've listened in on some of his conversations with his friends, and the general consensus among them seems to be that a girl with a super dysfunctional family is a massive red flag, and an indicator of what their married life would be like. So I come here asking, how do I approach the problem that is my parents without risking losing the longest relationship I've ever had? If my parents end up being the cause of yet another breakup, I just don't know. Edits. Wow, I made this post about an hour before going to bed. but I woke up to quite a few comments here. Thank you so much to everyone who helped me realize what I need to do. I've read through all the comments and saw some reoccurring questions come up that I wanted to address. I'm not fully no contact with my parents primarily because they helped me a lot financially during college and when I first graduated and was looking for a job. When I went low contact with them, they constantly yelled at me for being ungrateful and said family does not turn on each other over minor disagreements involving boys. It sounds ridiculous when I type it here, but after months of this treatment, when I found myself faced with a decision to either tell them I forgive them so they'll pay for my dorm room, or refuse to forgive them and have to move back home, I ended up caving. Why didn't I stand up for my past boyfriends when I saw them being verbally abused? I don't know. I've never been allowed to talk back to my parents, so the thought of calling them out while we have company over is not something I realized I could do, I guess. My arguments with them after they ran off boyfriend 2 and 3 were the only times I've ever come into full conflict with them my entire life. I'll be going to my boyfriend's house today after work and will tell him everything. I'm terrified he will still want to meet them. Just thinking about it has me shaking at my desk, but you are all right. He has to know and make his own decision. Edit 2. I told him and even showed him this post. To make a long story short, he would still like to meet them but thanked me for telling him, as he always figured something was seriously wrong. My parents host dinners for our family every Sunday, and he will be attending this one. I suppose I'll make a new post with an update afterwards. And it seemed like OP already got the advice that they wanted or needed. And, there was no other way about it. Your boyfriend needed to know the truth. And I couldn't see him judging you because of that. I mean, if you told me that about your family and you said, they drove away previous boyfriends, etc., it would leave me curious, but I wouldn't push that any further because, that's your family. If you're no contact, low contact with them, that's up to you. I'd understand that you've been through that, you know what it's like, so I trust you on that. I am finding it slightly weird that you're still going to a dinner with him this Sunday and he wants to still meet them after all this, but maybe I'm missing something there. But a commenter says, you stop bringing anyone you like around them, period. Tell your boyfriend why. They get weird and run anyone you date off with their nonsense, and you'd rather just avoid them altogether. My boyfriend knows all about my dysfunctional family and abusive upbringing. It didn't run him off. If anything, it brought us closer as he empathized. ETA, we just celebrated 6 years together. The right partner won't hold your family against you. You couldn't choose them after all. Chaos Incarnate says, if your plan is to stay with him in the long run, you have two options. 1, come clean about why you don't want to meet and explain why exactly you're scared of them meeting, or 2, cut off your parents entirely and tell your boyfriend you cut them off. Ideally, either way you end up telling him why you chose what you chose. Good relationships take communication, and if your boyfriend doesn't know why he's been kept away from your family, that most likely will be the reason you break up. So, sometime later, OP does come in with their update and says, I meant to make this update a lot sooner. But since my last post, a lot has happened. I truly appreciate all the comments I received calling me out for hiding my parents being insane from my boyfriend and encouraging me to be honest with him. My boyfriend is pretty involved now, so I guess I should give him a fake name. I call him Ethan. I sat Ethan down and told him about my parents and how they ran off my previous boyfriends, before showing him my original post, as many recommended. Fortunately, he did not seem to care that I hadn't told him, but he did agree with many commenters that my parents were more than just insane, they were outright abusive. Although he understood how I felt, he still said he would like to meet them, both to see it for himself, but also because he felt that there was an underlying reason for their behavior. My parents have dinner for the family every Sunday, which I've been attending on the weeks that I'm not hanging out with Ethan that day. So we agreed that he would come to the next one. When Sunday came and we arrived at my parents' house, my anxiety was through the roof. Ethan had agreed to leave with me the moment things started to get out of hand, but with my parents that could have easily been as soon as we walked through the front door. My parents were surprisingly very nice though. My dad actually seemed excited to see Ethan, and my mum fawned over her daughter bringing home such a handsome, confident looking man. I couldn't understand what was happening. Ethan even shot me a look a couple of times as if to silently ask if he was missing something, because my parents were actually lovely. I want to provide a play-by-play of the entire night, but the post would just be too long. The point is, my parents had done a complete 180 from their previous behavior, and it made me look and feel crazy for trying to warn Ethan about them ahead of time. During dinner, my mum said she was so happy to see her daughter had finally found someone who wasn't judgmental and was willing to give me a chance because of the person I am today. Because the past doesn't matter. My heart dropped. What was she talking about? Ethan said he does not know about anything in my past that may be a cause of concern, and my parents exchanged a concerned look, as if it was rehearsed. My dad asked him why he thinks my previous relationships failed, and he said that he was under the impression they got scared away after meeting my parents. My mother looked at me with disappointment on her face and said, "OP, is that really what you told him?" I was at a loss for words, but Ethan was not. He said that it's pretty clear they're trying to plant seeds of doubt in him about our relationship, but he is not interested, as he knows me well enough to know my character, and that even if there was something serious in my past, parents who loved and supported me or even just wanted grandchildren would keep it a secret to avoid ruining my relationship. My dad said he already has 2 grandchildren and motioned towards my sister, who did not have her kids with her that evening. Ethan said my dad must have been very supportive of my sister for her to be able to start a family, while he tries to run off any guy I bring home. And my dad's response was very casual but extremely shocking. He said, "Of course, she's actually mine." Everyone was quiet for a few moments, until Ethan spoke up and said that now all of the abuse they've only put me through is starting to make sense. My mum said he's spouting nonsense and that I have not been abused in any way. She then looked at me and admitted her marriage had a rocky start, but both her and my father have moved past that. I was too busy replaying my entire life in my head to say anything. The previous boyfriends, the lack of support for my social outings growing up, the volleyball games I had to have a friend drive me to because my parents were always too busy, the rage I was always at risk of facing if I ever spoke my mind. All while my sister got the opposite. I started to cry, the hardest I ever have. Ethan immediately announced that we were leaving. My dad demanded we stay where we are so we can clear things up, but Ethan ignored him as he pulled me out of my chair and led me away. My mum screamed at me not to leave and that this guy was trying to isolate me from my family. I yelled back that if anyone has been trying to isolate me, it was her for my whole life. As we drove back to Ethan's place, my mum sent me several text messages cussing me out, saying one mistake doesn't change the fact that my dad loved, supported, and raised me, and that he would always be my real father. Ethan said that he's not my dad. He's an abusive, controlling arsehole who was taking his insecurities out on me. I ended up blocking both of my parents' numbers because they were saying some truly awful things to me, both about myself and Ethan. Ethan said he was expecting them to be crazy, but this was far worse than he could have anticipated. He said I need to go into therapy immediately, and that he will pay for anything my insurance doesn't cover. My parents showed up at my apartment twice yesterday to demand I come out and speak to them, but I've been staying at Ethan's all weekend and will likely be here all week. I'm not sure if this is the update you all wanted. I had countless people enraged at me for being spineless and not standing up to my parents, and while I planned on doing so, that's not what happened. I don't know what is going to happen with my parents or where I go from here, but now that the holiday is over, I can spend some time looking for a good therapist. Commenter says to OP, so your mum cheated on your dad and you're the affair baby and they treated you poorly because of that. Is that the story, or has my reading comprehension failed me? Maybe you have a great father out there somewhere. 23andMe? Ethan sounds great. The truth shall set you free. But now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from the Entitled People subreddit from Roxanne, who says, Entitled bully gets their just rewards. My wife has an entitled co-worker / an acquaintance. I use the term acquaintance as she does run in our friend circle, but we try to limit or avoid contact with her. We will call her Carrie. Anyways, Carrie is known for bullying co-workers at work, saying that she can get people fired. She can't, screaming at people, and at large just general bad behavior. Her favorite thing to do to intimidate people with is to tell them to fuck around and find out. This is important for later. So Carrie had a fuck buddy. Nothing serious, just a guy she would bang and kick out the door. Carrie is also notorious for collecting engagement rings. She would begin dating a guy, get a ring from them, get them to pay off some bill for her, then kick them to the curb. Again, I bring this up only as context to her character, and to reinforce that the fuck buddy guy meant nothing to her, as she didn't date him nor try getting a ring from him. She'd use him, then kick him to the curb. Whenever someone with money showed her attention, she would also frequently talk shit about this guy behind his back. So Carrie was on one of her short-term engagements, so the fuck buddy, let's call him Bill, was currently not someone she was seeing, as the new guy just bought her a $6,000 ring. I'm serious, she collected engagement rings like they were Pokemon and paid 10 grand to get her roof fixed. So she was happy with this guy and had no interest at all in Bill. Enter Mandy. Mandy is another co-worker of my wife and Carrie. I personally don't know her, but from what I've been told is she just got out of a 15-year marriage where she wasn't allowed to do anything and was very controlled. Carrie and Mandy are friends. Well, drinking buddies. Carrie likes to drink a lot, and by that I mean all the time. But nevertheless, they were on good terms. So randomly, Mandy meets Bill. Mandy doesn't know Bill's history with Carrie, nor knows that he even knows her. They hit it off, like really good, and they're getting along so well that they begin dating, and it blossoms into a great relationship, one that's built on respect and love. Carrie finds out and loses her fucking mind. Again, she never dated Bill, never wanted to date Bill. She never had any interest in him besides sex. Hell, she is currently engaged to a guy, but Mandy took her man, and she let the world know about it. Carrie started by going to their boss daily and asking him, "Why does that little bitch still work here?" She would also loudly exclaim this on the work floor for all to hear. Also, Carrie spent a whole hour yelling and screaming at her for something Mandy didn't even do. Carrie would also frequently harass them both when they were out and about in town. She would loudly call her a bitch, another slur, and just all nasty things you can say about someone. She would not only loudly say these things in their proximity, but tell anyone that would listen, or not listen, basically anyone around her, how she was wronged by Mandy and Bill, and what she thought about it, and that Mandy is fucking around, so she is going to find out. Fast forward 2 months. Mandy and Bill are still together and extremely happy. Carrie is, not surprisingly, no longer engaged to that guy. Also, not surprisingly, had already been engaged to another guy and married after a week. It was unfortunately the 2-year anniversary of the passing of a mutual friend of all parties involved. Carrie is using this time to take the week off of work to drink. This is a whole other can of worms. Basically, she isn't close to this person who passed as she claims to be. But anyway, once work is over, everyone else goes to the bar to have a drink to celebrate the departed life. So again, once Carrie, after 2 days of full drinking, sees Mandy, she begins to let into her again with all the slut-shaming stuff. Mandy, finally having enough of it, attempts to talk to Carrie in an attempt to reconcile. Carrie is having none of this and keeps calling her names and proceeds to tell her that Mandy is fucking around and is going to find out. And it ends with calling her a "see you next Tuesday." Well, I'm guessing something snapped and Mandy straight snapped and threw a beer bottle straight at her, hitting her in the face. Imagine the cop in The Big Lebowski throwing the coffee cup, knocking her on her ass. There is a slight pause and someone I don't know who pipes up. "It looks like you're the one who fucked around and found out." Carrie, obviously stunned, gets up and leaves. So the next day, she showed up at work with a very obvious black eye. She isn't saying anything to Mandy, but going to everyone else complaining that she was the victim, not understanding that everyone has been watching her bully this poor girl for the last few months. And that's kind of it. Nothing else happened since then, but if it does, I'll let you know. Sorry this got long-winded. And there was a fair few people saying, is there like no HR in your wife's company? Like, why is she still allowed to work there if she's bullying someone for that amount of time? To which OP said that there is, and it's beyond them why they won't do anything. I've been in a couple of those companies with that kind of setup as well. But what an absolute awful person. But what about you guys? What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so, so much. And don't forget, at the very end of the video, there'll be a couple of playlists there that you can click on and it will automatically scroll through all the videos for you. So, you know, if you're doing a bit of art, a bit of crochet, maybe you're just out for a walk, maybe you're driving. Don't forget to let me know what you're up to, by the way. I know it sounds stupid to say, but to Everyone's doing their own little things, while listening. I just find that fascinating. I don't know why, but thank you so much for being here, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.